We must pay homage to him.
Guys, welcome back to another episode here at Fly Out Fridays. Listen, I've got a great special guest, my homie, my bro, my man David Meadows. And so recently he just came on as my creative assistant, and he's a beast. This brother in here making stuff happen. We were working on some exciting things that I cannot wait to share with you. And David, what's up, man? How you feeling?
Man, living well.
All right, I like that's
always living well.
And he's smooth with it too. And so, like, basically, man, I want to hear some of your story today. Like, we've had conversations,
Yeah.
and so I just want the people to hear some of your story. I've been impacted by it, but just kind of get to know you. And so, where did you grow up at?
Grew up right outside of Chicago.
Okay,
So I practically claim Chicago as my hometown.
understand.
Spent a lot of time in the city, but suburbs right outside of the city, Aurora and Lombard. It's kind of where those are my stomping grounds,
Right.
per se. But yeah, man, grew up in Chicago. Like, I don't want to say my story is, much different than most other people, but it's just like single parent mom. Did what we had to do to,
Right.
keep things moving. I think I lived a pretty normal life for the most part, though.
Right.
And yeah, nothing too crazy.
When did you graduate?
2011 is when I graduated high school.
Man, that seems
A while ago.
crazy.
10 year coming up. 10 year anniversary coming up.
10 year.
That's crazy.
Wow. I graduated in 1996, so it's like that's crazy.
I was 3 years old.
That's nuts. So like in high school, did you do any sports or anything?
Yeah, played baseball. I mean, sports were always a pretty big part of my life. Growing up, just, running around the neighborhood with all my friends, playing basketball every day after school, staying out of trouble by doing baseball in the spring,
Right.
trying football, a little bit too much for me. And then I was a pretty bigger kid growing up, so basketball, even though I loved it,
Right.
it was not a sport that I could play competitively, and I think that's very, very prevalent in my game today. Like, you can tell, like, oh, he tried, but
Right.
he was never really varsity. He might have been sophomore A team, but he was never varsity.
That's all good.
Yeah, but sports were a pretty big thing growing up, and in high school, I think the only focus sports-wise was baseball.
Right.
But I mean, other than that, I was just kind of like super involved in like clubs and different friend groups, and just really just having fun and like running the streets kind
Right.
of.
So how'd you get to like the
The
creative?
creative space.
Right.
It's funny because I really, even though I do a lot of work in the creative space, it's really hard for me to own that title of being a creative, because I think I'm very self-aware with who I am, and I'm more of like a process guy, a systems guy. I don't want to say logical thinker, but I guess if you were to put a word to it, like a logical thinker. But what I noticed was I always had a passion for creativity.
Right.
But I was never gifted musically, or, I could never draw, or at least I didn't put a passion into it, or
Right.
the time into it to see if I could even take it to a level to where it'd be considered, like, oh, he's good at what he does. But what I noticed in college is that I had a passion for, this space, and then I had a lot of friends that did music, or they were photographers, or they did art, and I just happened to find myself always in an environment that was a creative environment. And I was going to school at the time for marketing and international business, and then I was also managing a Chick-fil-A. So I was like,
Shout out Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, shout out Chick-fil-A. I will forever rep Chick-fil-A till I die. But it's crazy because, like, so I would be in these spaces, and I would kind of just like, I don't know what kind of terminology they use here in Oklahoma, but back in Chicago, like peep game. Like, you're always just observing, and you're kind of like watching how people move and how people operate, and like, how different pockets of people kind of maneuver. So I would always do that, and what I would notice with the creatives, at least, the groups that I was like kind of kicking it with, is these kids, or whoever these people were uber talented creatively, and they'd all have a passion or a dream for wanting to take it to the next level.
Right.
but what they lacked or what they failed to realize is, a lot of these people that we look up to, as yes, they are creative geniuses, but behind the scenes they have the structure and the processes,
Absolutely.
systems in place to kind of push them and elevate them. So that's kind of like where I got, involved, like really heavy, like going to South by Southwest. It's because I was like, oh, okay, like I know a bunch of creatives. They either need managers or they need somebody that can network for them, or even though they can make great music, they're socially awkward. So being able to like go to parties and kind of just like get their name out there,
kind of facilitate that.
Yeah,
network.
I think facilitating growth.
Right.
For the last, so when did I start doing that? 2012, 2013.
Right.
Is when I really started doing that, like for real. And ever since then, I've kind of like taken on this moniker of being somebody that wants to facilitate the growth of another individual.
Right.
And I think that just kind of comes down to how I was raised. My mom always put it into perspective that you're special, but you're not unique. In a sense, like, yeah, like, you're special, like you're here for a purpose, but you're not unique, so you don't need to be the center of attention all the time. You don't need to be the one that has to strive to be in the limelight. Like, you can be who you are behind the scenes, still be happy, still be content, still be satisfied,
and still do something bigger outside yourself.
Yeah, do something bigger than who I am. So that's kind of just like how I got into the creative space. It's having a passion for it.
That's tight.
Yeah, it's having a passion for creativity, but having the self-awareness to know I'm not a creative in the sense of I'm not an artist or designer or musician, but I love business.
Right.
And I love like behavior of people.
Right.
So I can combine those two things to
really
help other people understand, like, oh, this is what you're trying to do. Have you ever thought about approaching it from this perspective?
Very cool. And so,
Yeah.
what was that transition from Chicago, and how did you get to Oklahoma? Like what was that?
South by Southwest.
Does that say Oklahoma?
Yeah, pretty much. So it was I think 2013 was kind of like the biggest year at South by Southwest for me and a couple homies. It's funny, my current roommate, who I moved from Chicago, it was myself, him, and then another one of our good friends who was a musician at the time, or an artist. And so this is gonna be like a quick 3-4 minute story. So it's kind of crazy. We had no intention of going to South by Southwest that year. And then I was working with my roommate. He was a photographer at the time, and we were running a blog. And there was a group of artists out of Chicago that were like, hey, we need somebody to come like cover us while we're down in South by Southwest.
Right.
So we're like, okay, cool. Me being kind of like the facilitator, I made sure that we had the van rented. I made sure that we had hotels booked, all that good stuff. Logistics, right? Fast forward to 48 hours before we're supposed to leave, everybody backs out. So by that time, like me and my roommate, like even though we had no intention of going, we were kind of hyped up. We're like, man, like this is gonna be a dope road trip. Like we're gonna have a fun time. So we're like, you know what? Let's just go. Like we really don't have any intention for what to expect,
right?
Or we don't really have a motive as to why we're going, because the original reason was to cover this group that's no longer gonna be there.
Right.
So anyway, we end up going, and we're like, okay, why don't we just like, we're 19, 20, why don't we just cover, like what's going on down here? So we interviewed a stupid amount of people.
Any notable names?
Yeah, so and this is like, it's kind of crazy because I credit God to like that entire trip, because he just really,
shouts out to the Lord.
Yeah, he not only did he protect us, like so my car broke down right outside of Austin for 45 minutes. And where it broke down, we saw some people skating, so we were like, oh, let's just go film these people skating. It happened to be Paul Rodriguez and Theodis Beasley. So we interviewed them, got all their contact info. They kind of put us in tune with other people. We were on 6th Street. The biggest interview that we did was Cortez Bryant. For people who don't know, that's Lil Wayne's manager. He managed most of the artists that are on Young Money. And it's kind of cool because I'm not afraid to like ask questions, or like I just don't really care. So we're doing this interview, and I'm like, this was back in 2012, 2013. I'm like, so when's the Carter 5 coming out? May 5th, because Drake was at a club and he announced Carter 5 May 5th, and he said no, it's not coming out that day. I was like, oh, so fast forward anyway. We put the interview on YouTube, MTV picked it up, and we were the first publication to confirm that the Carter 5 wasn't gonna come out on the release date that it was expected.
You're dropping a bombshell on all media networks.
Yeah, so it was kind of just like, but that did a couple things for me. First thing it did for me was kind of like, it humbles you, because you have this expectation like, oh man, I was on a major media outlet, like I'm a big thing. But then like a week later, it's like, wait, I'm not a big thing.
Right, is that just that quick?
Yeah, you know, so it's kind of like, okay, that was a cool moment, I can learn from it, but I'm not gonna, those are not the wins that I'm gonna celebrate.
Right.
But at the same time, what it really did for me was it showed me how accessible people are.
If you're in the right space at the
If you're in the
time.
right space. So while we were in South by Southwest, we went to a mansion party, and we were doing interviews at this mansion party, and I met a guy, and at the time he was running a tech company. Kept his information, he was a really cool dude. We just kind of like kept in touch over social media. Fast forward to 2016, I was finishing up school, working at a car.
Where's school at?
DePaul.
You went to DePaul?
DePaul University.
I had no idea.
I don't recommend anybody go to DePaul University.
I drove past that
It's
campus.
like, it's super expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, you know, I'm working at a car dealership that summer. I quit the car dealership. He calls me, he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, honestly, like, I have no idea. You know, I'm kind of like in a limbo. I don't really know what I want to pursue, this, that, and the third. I have a lot of student loan debt that I got to pay off. So he was like, come to Oklahoma City and work for me and my brother in oil and gas. So that's kind of like how I ended up here.
Right.
Was just a job opportunity.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at God.
Yeah.
Why Group Fly? What? Like, I don't even know how we met. I think you came to the shop and we ended up grabbing coffee. And
so yeah, we have a really good friend, Marcus Jackson.
Shout out Cadence Urban Bridge.
Yep.
Bridge.
He runs a nonprofit youth center
right
over on the east side of Oklahoma City.
Shout out to the bridge,
which they're gonna be blowing up pretty soon. I was at the time. There's two amazing guys here in the city, Caleb Fountain and Micah, who are the owners and operators of 1032 Space. They worked at a streetwear store that shut down, and because I worked in oil and gas, I had some connections to some money people.
right?
And they had reached out to me, and they were like, hey, could you maybe like just get us in touch with the right people? Fast forward, I ended up, you know, just kind of like doing what I could for them, helping them with a business plan, put some money to their business, and they were still looking to raise a little bit more capital. The final stretch before the store was supposed to open up. So I reached out to Marcus and I was like, hey, you keep talking about this guy named Vern that runs a clothing brand.
Right.
We need some cash. Does he have money or does he know money?
No.
So, yeah, so it was a great meeting. And even though like, you know, we weren't able to kind of like move forward in that sense
right.
of a partnership, you called me like 2 or 3 days later and you're just like, hey, I want to get together and kind of just like pick your brain and like
right.
see where you're at in life and see where that goes. And that kind of, one, that showed me a couple things. I was like, okay, he sees something in myself
right.
that I can appreciate. 2, he's been doing this for 10 years, which shows me that he's able to do something, you know, with longevity.
Right.
You know, because we live in like a microwave society where things are here today, gone tomorrow. So if you can keep anything going for 10 years, that's a testament to like what you're able to do.
Right.
So that was like the second thing. The third thing was kind of like, okay, he's black, he's a man of faith, and he's kind of like where I want to be when I'm 40 years old.
Right. You be further though. You be a lot further.
Yeah. So that was kind of just like what was appealing to, you know, to why I wanted to even like originally get involved.
Right.
And then like just kind of like being in here day to day. I think it's really just like understanding that the vision that both you and I have is bigger than clothing or bigger than, you know, a retail space or bigger than, you know, whatever we do. I think at the end of the day, you know, we just want to be able to empower, you know, individuals from, you know, underprivileged communities
right.
to find success in whatever they want to find success in, whether that be the creative space or the business space or the ministry space, whatever it be, just kind of provide a platform for those individuals to either find inspiration or pursue a dream or whatever the case may be. So I saw that our vision was kind of like aligned.
Right.
And I think that's super important is what I've noticed like growing up is that everybody wants to sit at the cool table, but you have to understand that like the kids at the cool table, it might be the cool table, but if their visions and your visions don't align, you don't need to be sitting at that table.
Man, that's facts. Learn that the hard way.
Yeah, so it's kind of just like, understanding that is just like, having like-minded people around you is super important. Right,
and I think what that does is that, you got people that are pulling you to greater. And I think having that, being around people that have similar passions, that are driven, that are going in the same direction, I think it helps motivate you just to live beyond yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And so real quick, we're both sneaker guys. Like your sneaker collection is crazy. It's like you got Off-White, Sean the Witherspoon, you got everything. Yeah. And so I know you're a Jordan 1 guy. So we pull these out of the vault. So when I pull these out, iconic bred Jordan 1s. When you hold that shoe, what does that mean? Like what emotions does that evoke?
To be honest with you, I was never into Jordan 1s.
Right.
And my appreciation for Jordan 1s has grown exponentially over the last couple years.
You got like pairs.
Yeah, it's my favorite shoe now for a couple reasons. This shoe to me represents who I want to be as an individual.
Right.
Because as a creative, you see creatives nowadays, and a lot of it is, yes, you have so much going on up here, and a lot of creatives express their mental creativity through their style, and their style is wild and crazy, which I can respect and I can appreciate it. That's just not me, however.
Right.
So for me, I want to be a Jordan 1 in the sense that like my aesthetic or like the outside, appearance of me as an individual, clean cut, timeless, classic. It's never wild, but it's never too boring. It's kind of just like, okay, that's clean. However, everything on the inside, the guts, the things that you don't see, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, that's groundbreaking.
Right.
Like that's pushing culture forward. That's pushing the envelope forward. So for me, that's kind of like, this is the shoe. What emotions? Just timelessness.
Right. It is a timeless silhouette.
Yeah, it's just like it'll never be a bad silhouette. This is the silhouette that, I'm 20, almost 26 now. I feel like I can wear it and be cool, but when I'm 50 and I have kids, I'll be able to throw on a pair of Jordan 1s, and then my kids will be like, Dad, that's a cool, that's a cool shoe. So yeah.
Classic, man. Classic. Man, I appreciate you coming in, spending time with us here.
Always.
Good to hear your story. Get to kind of hear kind of what makes up a person, and so I appreciate you just being honest and open and transparent. Guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Flat Out Friday. I want to let you guys know that this weekend, Friday, we got a great pop-up. Tori, you hand me these pieces real quick? Shout out to Tori just making stuff happen.
Friday's a collection.
So Friday's collection.
Saturday's the pop-up.
So some of the, I'll give you props. David cooked up some of these pieces, so I think he's the inspiration behind the basketball, kind of going back to the Nike Force days. This is Sydney on the back, I love. You know what I'm saying? And then, the UNC Rebels, then we have fun putting all this stuff together. And so teamwork makes the dream work. And so these pieces will be available online Friday, as long as you can get on there quick, because they're super limited. And then Saturday we'll have a limited stock here inside of the space. And so also Select Classics will have some curated vintage pieces.
Really dope guy that's bringing some vintage pieces, vintage Reebok, Nike, quite a few pieces that I think are going to be really tastefully curated for people to shop through. He'll be here this weekend, so that'll be pretty fun. And the next few months, just be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout, boy!
So
All right, we appreciate you. Shout out to Tori behind the lens. Hey guys, we'll see you next week. Love you guys. Fly out.